Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could ask members of council to take their seats and members of the public to take a seat, we'll begin the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Happy New Year. Welcome to the first meeting of Ottawa City Council for 2019. Bienvenue à la première réunion pour le Conseil municipal de la Ville d'Ottawa pour l'année 2019. Friday, January 11th was a tragic day for our city. At approximately 3:50 p.m. that afternoon, a number 269 double-decker bus heading to the Bridlewood community in Canada collided into the Westboro station, taking the lives of 3 residents and causing injuries to 23 others. It's with great sadness that I express on behalf of the City of Ottawa and all of my colleagues on City Council my deepest sympathies to the families and friends of those who lost their lives in that traumatic accident. Today, we remember the lives of Bruce Tomlinson, Judy Booth, and Anja Van Beek. We keep their family and friends in our thoughts and prayers as they deal with the grief and suffering from their loss.
We keep their family and friends in our thoughts and prayers as they deal with the grief and suffering of their loss.
The residents who were injured in this terrible accident, some of whom lost limbs, and we're thinking of you as you work towards recovery. And to all of those who were on or near that bus that day or who witnessed the accident, I want you to know that we do not forget the challenges that you will face in the days, months, and years ahead. We know it will take some time for residents of our city to recover. Ça prendra bien du temps avant.
It will take a lot of time before the survivors and witnesses of this accident recover.
The things that defines our city really is the kindness of its residents. This kindness was evident throughout this tragedy. It was heartwarming on the bus. Stories of people assisting others who were searching for their loved ones, and stories of residents supporting each other as they made their first trip on the bus after the accident. And of course, stories of residents showing up at Westboro Station and in Canada in the days after the accident to show their support for those affected by this tragedy. In particular, thanks to community associations and groups and Councillor Hubley and Leaper's wards for being so considerate in organizing vigils and tributes to those who lost loved ones. It's because of all these gestures of care that we are a stronger city. Ce sont toutes ces histoires d'aide et de compassion qui font d'Ottawa une ville résiliente. I want to thank all residents for the generous support you have shown, and certainly the hundreds of messages we receive from people outside of our city, including from many mayors, as well as ambassadors and high commissioners. It means so much to receive these outpouring of support for those people who are suffering. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our first responders, our firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, our OC Transpo Special Constables, as well as the medical staff at our hospitals for their tireless work and dedication to those affected by the collision. Also, Dr. Vera Etches and Councillor Eglai, as Chair of Health Board, please pass along our sincere thanks to public health professionals who were also very helpful in the days and hours after the tragedy. Je remercie sincèrement tous.
I also like to thank our first respondent who acted like heroes during these events.
Family at OC Transpo and city staff for their professionalism and commitment during this very difficult time for them as well. I'd now ask everyone who is able to please stand for a moment of silence to remember the victims of this tragedy. Joignez-vous à moi un moment de silence en l'honneur des victimes de cette tragédie. Please remain standing, and I'll ask my colleague, Councillor Leeper, to introduce our very special guest who is going to sing our national anthem.
Thank you, Mayor. I am pleased to introduce Kitchissippi resident Pay Pilgrim, who gained local fame with her collaboration with Peter Joint on their song Loving This Feeling, released in August of 2018. Pay attends Fisher Park Public School and, at 13 years old, is already a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist with 100% original songs available on her YouTube channel. We know Pay has big things in store for her, and we're honored to have her here today to sing the national anthem. Pay?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Garde ton bras et porte l'épée, et c'est porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants espoirs. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you.
I just saw the musical about Carole King and how she started writing songs when she was young. So it just made me think about her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.
I'd also want to extend a warm welcome to Greg's wife, Elizabeth, family, friends, and associates. I said I think half of Osgood is here today to celebrate Greg.
Hey, Osgood!
Greg is being honored for his outstanding volunteerism and service to his community. He has been a member of the Osgood Village Community Association for close to a decade, serving 2 years as president, and he's a member of the Osgood Ward Business Association. He is head usher at the Trinity Bible Church, where he pronounced and directed various dramas for the community, and has been an Osgood Lions member for 9 years, helping to organize events and raise money for important causes. In addition to being deeply involved in local clubs and organizations, Greg, along with his wife Elizabeth, helped to prepare weekly church dinners and host monthly community luncheons for those less fortunate. Greg continues to motivate residents to be more involved in the community. He not only supports Osgood community events, but he started many of the initiatives that make Osgood the vibrant community it is today. Some of these initiatives have benefited the Osgood Care Centre, where Greg helped to renovate one of the centre's lounges. I'd like to take this opportunity, on behalf of all of my colleagues on City Council, to thank you, Greg, very much for your many contributions to the community and the entire city. J'aimerais saisir cette occasion pour remercier Greg.
So I take this opportunity to thank Greg for his many contributions to the community of Osgood and the entire city.
Sir George DeRuse to present you with the Mayor's City Builder Award. Congratulations. Come on out here. We'll just take a picture.
Well, it is a pleasure to address you all. I stand in awe here thinking of what I was going to say, and I like to encourage people. I had an uncle and aunt that taught me very important lessons, Phil and Blanche Weatherall, about serving your community. And they had a marvelous daughter that I won't say I idolized, but I watched her career go on. And she actually sits here in City Council, but I don't see her today. Jan Harder. She's actually my first cousin. That's supposed to be a secret. Not anymore. Not anymore. I look around and I see you guys, the service you do to your community, and I've been on the end of that, and I am just in awe that every one of you have stepped up to serve the community. Mr. Mayor, I've met you several times. I've had the pleasure of meeting some great politicians in my life, and you're one of the greatest. Thank you very much. And George, you're just a mentor, that's the best thing. To the people from Osgood, this is your board, not mine. I only stand to encourage you. You are the guys that make the township great. And you're great. Thank you for the time. And you guys all have a blessed day.
Thank you. Well, thank you very, very much, Greg. You and your guests are cordially invited to stay for the State of the City address, and those who are able to after the address, please make your way to Jean Piggott for coffee and tea. With another eventful and productive year under our belt, the State of the City address presents us with the opportunity to look back on what we have accomplished together as a city. But the beginning of a new term of council is also a particular occasion to take a forward-looking view and acknowledge the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead for our city. C'est une occasion pour nous reconnaître de bons coups, mais aussi de prendre note des défis qui nous attendent. Important items waiting for us this term. The launch of the Confederation Line and the beginning of construction on Stage 2, as well as the review of our official plan, transportation master plan, a strategy to manage our solid waste, and a ward boundary review. Thankfully, we as a council are presented with the privilege of working together over the next 4 years to address many of these challenges and improve our community and the quality of life for our residents. But before I start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Algonquin people who have lived on these ancestral lands for millennia. I truly value our relationship with our surrounding Algonquin communities, Pikwakanagan and Kitigan-Zibi, as well as all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit residents of our city. And I want to welcome Chief Kirby Whiteduck from Pikwakanagan, who has joined us here today. It's important for me to have our Indigenous partners present at these events. It speaks not only of our ongoing friendship, but also the city's efforts to deliver on our country's reconciliation efforts. And I was proud when Council unanimously adopted last year a complete reconciliation action plan and statement of reconciliation which aligned with the Truth and Reconciliation's calls to action. I believe it's the least we can do to live in solidarity with our Algonquin neighbors and to begin to right the wrongs of the past. Et nous continuons cette collaboration.
And we are continuing this great collaboration on many levels.
Tourism had worked with Chief White Ducks Community and Indigenous Sport and Wellness Ontario to deliver on a number of initiatives that will promote Indigenous wellness through sport leadership and community development. As part of this agreement, Ottawa will have the honor of hosting the 2021 Ontario Indigenous Summer Games, as well as the 2021 and 2023 Master Indigenous Games, which we are thrilled to welcome to our city. Hosting these prestigious games will give our residents the opportunity to learn more about Indigenous culture as we celebrate it. Nous avons hâte de célébrer la culture autochtone.
We're anxious to celebrate this Aboriginal culture with the thousands of participants who will come in Ottawa.
Economy and help sustain good jobs in our hospitality industry. As I look back on the success of our tourism sector over the past year, it's almost unfair to compare it to 2017 when we celebrated Canada's 150th anniversary. Our city and its Ottawa 2017 initiative had delivered a very successful program of events that captivated and excited our residents, and more than 11 million tourists who chose to visit our nation's capital that special year. In fact, 2017 was so successful that many believed a significant tourism hangover was almost inevitable in 2018. But despite those early fears, our partners at Ottawa Tourism are excited to report an increase of more than 4% in hotel demand over 2016, an important achievement for our tourism sector. And we have heard the same message from the Ottawa Airport, where passenger numbers were up 5.6% over 2017, a new record again for the airport. And it's hard to ignore the importance of the activity following the release of last week's Ottawa Tourism's economic impact study. L'industrie de tourisme fournit des dizaines de milliers.
Tourism industry creates tens of thousands of employment to our residents.
Direct jobs that depend on a healthy tourism sector in our city. That adds $1.4 billion to the GDP, or over $3.8 million that are generated every single day because of Ottawa's tourism community. Michael Crockett, who is with us here today, and his team at Ottawa Tourism are always hard at work promoting Ottawa as a destination. They also ensure that we keep up the momentum by attracting major sporting and cultural events and conferences to Ottawa. And with the new hotel tax in place, for the first time ever, they now have the resources to compete aggressively on the world stage for these events. For instance, last year we successfully hosted events like the Canadian Track and Field Championships in Councillor Riley Brockington's ward at the Terry Fox track, the FIVB Volleyball Nations League at TD Place, and the University Sports Soccer Championships, which U Ottawa came out victorious on home turf. We'll keep up the pace in 2019 by playing host to many more exciting events like the Canadian Championships in Artistic Gymnastics, the Ontario Basketball Championships for under 14 boys and under 16 girls, and the University Sports Women's Rugby Championship. Simply between these four events, Ottawa will welcome 3,500 athletes in addition to coaches, officials, and family members, most of whom will stay in local hotels, shop, and eat locally. And with the work of Sports Commissioner Mathieu Fleury, we hope to continue to announce more major events this term. And there are other reasons for tourists to visit Ottawa this year, with our tourism and cultural sectors marking a number of milestones in the coming years. The National Arts Centre turns 50 years old this year, and the NAC team is celebrating by launching a new Indigenous theatre program. La Nouvelle Scène, qui abrite 4 compagnies de théâtre,
which includes 4 companies of French theater, is now in its new facility on King Edward and will celebrate its 20th anniversary this year.
Celebrating their 25th season, and Music and Beyond is marking its 10th anniversary in 2019. In 2020, the world will be marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Holland during the Second World War. As you know, during that difficult time for the Dutch people, the royal family found refuge right here in Ottawa. In fact, Princess Marguerite was born in 1943 at the Ottawa Civic Hospital, where a federal proclamation declared the maternity ward to be Dutch land, ensuring that the new princess would only be Dutch and therefore eligible to the line of succession to the throne. These events are behind the special relationship that Canada and the Netherlands has, and it's the reason why their country still sends us 20,000 tulip bulbs that come to life and add color to our city every spring. I've written to Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister Freeland to encourage them to invite the King and Queen of the Netherlands to visit Ottawa in 2020 so we can appropriately celebrate this remarkable event. Now, as many of you know, Centre Block is now closed for over a decade to undergo significant renovations, which means that a generation of school children coming to Ottawa won't have access to the building they know as Parliament. Notre édifice du Parlement sera fermé pendant.
The Parliament building will be closed for more than 10 years for renovations.
Visitors will have exciting new experiences and new reasons to visit our city, discovering the temporary homes of the House of Commons in West Block and of the Senate inside the old train station. In fact, I had the opportunity to visit the Senate chamber. That's a picture from yesterday. I encourage you to go and visit both West Block and the train station, spectacular works of architecture in our own backyard. And let's not forget the many other city-led projects that makes Ottawa a great destination, but also a more livable city for our residents. This past spring, we opened the new Ottawa Art Gallery, a world-class arts facility that's quickly become a visitor attraction, even getting praise from the New York Times. And although it was not a full year of operations, the OAG is thrilled to report that they welcomed a record 230,000 visitors in 2018, more than double their projections. I don't know if folks are here from the Ottawa Art Gallery. Alex, Peter, thank you very, very much. Bravo on such a great launch of Ottawa Art Gallery and the renovation of Arts Court. And although I'm excited about these numbers, I'm not necessarily surprised. Just last week, I had the opportunity to attend an event hosted by the Ottawa Cultural Alliance, where they're hard at work developing our city's next cultural roadmap. The Cultural Alliance used this session to share results of a recent study showing that an amazing 90% of Ottawa-Gatineau Canadian cities. I think it's a promising sign for our city's arts and culture sector for the coming years. Le secteur des arts et de la culture sur Ottawa. Another encouraging sign is the increase in the number of murals across our city, as many residents are also showing their enthusiasm for these public art displays. Last fall, Sterling Avenue resident Sarah May had a mural for her 3-year-old French bulldog, Imelda, posing with flowers painted on the side of her house in Hintonburg. After she was asked by bylaw to repaint it, Councillor Leeper and I intervened at Council to save the beautiful mural and that was animating and bringing joy to this neighbourhood. This year, as staff will be reviewing the permanent signs on private property bylaw, I've asked them to find an easy process to provide exemptions when appropriate. This would encourage this non-commercial type of public art, which makes our city more appealing and more livable. Je veux que la ville fasse sa part.
I want the city to do its part to encourage this type of public art in all the areas of the city.
City's growing attractions is Lansdowne Park. Since its revitalization, Lansdowne has become one of our city's great destinations and an important economic generator, not to mention a great source of pride and entertainment for all. And our residents will soon have more options to get to this site once the Flora footbridge opens in the fall of 2019. This exciting addition to our transportation network will make it easier for pedestrians and cyclists to get to Lansdowne, and it will increase connectivity between the neighbourhoods of Councillor Menard's ward. This $21 million project is a great example of what we can accomplish when all 3 levels of government work together to fund important infrastructure projects. And I want to thank Minister Catherine McKenna and then Provincial Minister Yasser Naqvi for delivering on this exciting project that will greatly benefit residents and visitors alike. Although it's still a few years away, we continue to make progress on our Central Public Library project, working with our partners at Library and Archives Canada. This is an important initiative for our community, as the relevance and need for libraries is greater than ever. OPL Chair Tim Tierney tells me that last year alone, the Ottawa Public Library registered an impressive 4.4 million in-person visits. Il est clair que nos bibliothèques publiques sont encore des endroits.
Our public libraries are still very popular for families and residents.
We announced that the respected team of Diamond Schmidt Architects and local firm KWC has been chosen as a successful proponent to design the new library. Witnessing the exceptional work that they did on the revitalization of the National Arts Centre and the new Senate of Canada building, I'm very excited to see what iconic building they will propose with community input for our central library. The community consultation on this great city building project are going to start at the end of February. The exact details will be announced in the weeks ahead, and I encourage you to come out in great numbers to let the designers and architects know what facilities you'd like to see in this building located in Councillor McKenney's ward. I'm also
Thanks to all these investments in our city, the confidence in our economy is on the rise.
It reached its lowest level in over 30 years, dropping as low as 4.2%. Since then, we've delivered on 3 more projects that will help to diversify our economy and create thousands of more jobs in all parts of the city. In May, Council approved the Hard Rocks expansion plan for the Rideau-Carleton Raceway in the South End. This $320 million project will create approximately 3,100 construction jobs and close to 900 permanent jobs, up from the current 400 employees. And in July, I was pleased to confirm the arrival of Amazon in the city's East End with the construction of its new fulfillment centre on Boundary Road. Not only will Amazon create more than 600 full-time jobs in Ottawa when it opens later this year, the construction of the facility is providing work to 1,500 people in the construction industry. Amazon crée 600 bons emplois.
Will create 600 good employment, good jobs for our residents.
We approved a $40 million soundstage campus and creative hub that will be built across the street from the Nepean Sportsplex. I'm proud to have worked with Ottawa's Film Commissioner, Bruce Harvey, and Tribro Studios with the support of Councillors Egli, Harder, and Cloutier to bring this proposal forward. This project will create approximately 500 full-time jobs during construction and over 500 new full-time jobs in film, TV, animation in its first year of operations alone. Ce projet crée 500 nouveaux.
This will create 500 new employment in the cinema and animation sector for Ottawa.
Will soon launch on the same NCC property, which contains 16 kilometers of paved roads, an autonomous vehicle test track where we can safely test these cars of the future away from other road users. This project will also support the development of products and technologies to advance precision agriculture, cutting-edge agricultural practices that lead to higher crop yields and a lower environmental footprint. And perfect timing, Councillor, as I was talking about precision agriculture and autonomous vehicles. And speaking of the NCC, I remain hopeful that this year the partners looking to develop LeBreton Flats will successfully negotiate with the NCC so we can finally see a start to this project, which would create thousands of new jobs in our city. And with the Canadian Tire Centre potentially moving downtown, we must be aware of, as I know Councillor Gower is, of the need to ensure that we do our very, very best to help fill the void that will be left with this move in the Stittsville-Canada area. And I'm quite proud that we've been able to help deliver these thousands of well-paying jobs for Ottawa's residents while maintaining the city's books in order. Nous avons aidé à livrer ces milliers.
We have helped to create these thousands of jobs for our residents.
Low and the city affordable for all has been one of my top priorities since coming to City Hall. I've always believed that this fiscal discipline helps our seniors on fixed incomes, young couples looking to buy their first home, and small businesses dealing with rising costs. As I always say, we must be part of the solution to help our residents and small businesses, not part of the problem. That is why, in the last election, I committed to helping restaurants that bring so much liveliness to our neighborhoods by reducing their patio fees by 50%. This reduction will save restaurants paying patio fees an average of $3,200 per year. And I'm proud to say that I'll be bringing forward this proposal in the upcoming budget so we can lend a hand to some of our city's hardest working entrepreneurs. Nous allons livrer sur cet engagement pour aider à nos restaurants et leurs entrepreneurs. I'm also committed to helping reduce costs for our city's festivals who count on our help to make their event a success. One comment I often hear from festival organizers is that their security and policing costs are consistently growing up. That is why I committed to working with the provincial government and the city's emergency services staff who oversee our special events bylaw to bring in changes that will allow festival organizers to use public more safety professionals and fewer paid duty officers to oversee security at their events. This would allow festivals to save on security costs, freeing up funds to reinvest towards artists and musicians. We all know these festivals play an important role in defining our city's cultural identity and making it a great destination. They also support our growing music industry and the musicians, producers, and venues that can truly transform Ottawa into a music city. With that in mind, Council approved last year the first ever Ottawa music strategy, thanks to the leadership of Councillor Leeper, a plan that identified opportunities and targeted investments to help grow this promising sector. And we're already seeing investments happening based on our community's enthusiasm for music. Just think of the latest addition to Queen Street, right next to the Parliament station of LRT. La rue Queen fait peu neuve et la musique y jouera un rôle clé. Queen Street Fair has quickly become a popular food hall and music venue in the heart of Centertown, with live music acts that entertain crowds almost every night. And they were the first venue to purchase the city's new musician loading zone permit, which allows musicians to unload their instruments in convenient nearby locations, making the venue attractive to artists. And this is just one of the transformations that's taking place on Queen Street, as Michael Curran recently pointed out in the Ottawa Business Journal, and I quote, "The NAC and the Super Library will neatly bookend Queen Street, creating a much more lively corridor than ever before." Still continue on, quote, "With LRT, better buildings, improved entertainment options, and a trend of burgeoning tech companies like Clipfolio and SurveyMonkey to settle downtown, it's easy to see a more promising future for this once tired old street," end quote. Now, we know that a thriving cultural and music scene is always key to attracting young and promising talent to Ottawa, and there's already a lot of it. Il y a des tonnes de talent dans notre scène culturelle. I'm especially proud of the inspiring startups that are coming out of Bayview Yard since it opened in late 2016. With the help of Michael Tremblay, who is with us here today, we are helping to launch and grow the next generation of local entrepreneurs. I'm sure many of you tuned in to the Dragon's Den on CBC a few weeks ago to witness a successful $250,000 deal that the grocers Corey Ellis and Alida Burke struck with two of the dragons. The grocer, with its state-of-the-art food-growing system inside a sea container, is a true local success story, and I applaud them on their continued accomplishments. And the city also plays a role in fostering innovation from local startups. For a few years now, economic development staff have been facilitating the Innovation Pilot Project, which was initiated by Councillor Alan Hubley to test these new products and technologies within city services. There's the Key to Access and its technology to help visually impaired residents navigate intersections, which was tested at an intersection on Elgin Street last year, and because of its success, it will be going to tender this spring to install this type of technology at all intersections on the redeveloped Elgin Street. For their part, Safety Labs has created a sensor technology and protects residents living with dementia from wandering off to unknown locations. And this product will be tested in the coming months at the Peter D. Clark Long-Term Care Centre in Nepean. I look forward to seeing the results of these pilot projects, and I hope we'll be able to help these local companies grow along the way. Je veux plusieurs histoires à succès et mon promenade.
I've seen many successes in my community.
A number of businesses to learn more about what they do and how they strengthen our local economy. I like to, every couple of weeks, go and visit a different company to see how they're doing and see how we as a city can help them operate even better. Like Mercury Filmworks and Jam Filled Entertainment, two very successful animation firms who employ approximately 500 residents in Nepean. And a little-known fact about Mercury Filmworks is that they animate all of the new episodes of the most popular animated character of all times, Mickey Mouse. Believe it or not, Mickey Mouse is animated right here in our city. Who would have thought Mickey Mouse would ever set foot in Ottawa, let alone come to life in our city? And some of the excitement and growth in our animation sector is already attracting other players to Ottawa. For instance, I was at the opening and announcement of Vancouver's Atomic Cartoons as they set up shop in Hintonburg, opening an office with a team of approximately 15 animators and creative minds. Are also increasing in one of our city's thriving industries, high tech. Just this past summer, commercial estate brokerage firm CBRE ranked Ottawa as #1 in North America for having the tech industry with the most momentum. From Shopify and Clipfolio offices bursting at the seams downtown to the increasing activity in the Canada North Business Park, something Councillor Sudds knows all about, there is no doubt that Ottawa's tech economy is thriving. True to their hashtag Success Happens Here, the Canada North Business Association recently released an economic impact study that put in perspective the contributions of their more than 500 high-tech members. The study revealed that Canada North's 33,000 employees contributed an impressive $13 billion to Canada's GDP, up 66% from 2015, and there's no signs of slowing. And with already so much activity in Canada, a number of tech companies are turning to the downtown core for office space and to attract the next generation of talent, something we've never seen before. And this trend could extend even further east thanks to the arrival of LRT and vacancy rates that are expected to trend even lower in 2019. Developers and property managers like Colonnade, Bridgeport are predicting that LRT could increase demand in office space in the East End, where vacancy rates tend to be higher and rental fees lower. And I know Councillors Dudas and Luloff are working to ensure LRT helps bring economic prosperity to Orleans. Ceci crée des opportunités d'amener des activités.
This will create opportunities in the East.
Looking to control costs, as well as East End residents looking for employment opportunities closer to home. Sean Hamilton, CBRE's Senior Vice President, stated recently that he, quote, can't recall a time when there were so many simultaneous developments planned in Ottawa. We know that Ottawa is performing strongly, but we have to ensure that decision makers at all levels of government know this as well. Which is why on February 26, I will lead a delegation to Toronto where we will host Ottawa Day at Queen's Park to raise awareness with provincial ministers and MPPs. With the assistance of Minister Lisa MacLeod, I'll be joined by Ottawa's business, tourism, education, and health leaders so that we can promote our city's accomplishments and advocate for its continued success. I look forward to the delegation and I meeting with Premier Ford and members of his government to share Ottawa's success stories ahead of the provincial budget. Through the flurry of economic growth taking place in Ottawa, we as a council must ensure that these opportunities benefit residents in all parts of the city. So let's not forget the important jobs that exist in rural Ottawa, many of whom help feed our families each and every day. As we all know, over 80% of Ottawa is rural and agricultural land. Last year, I visited the Burton Farms, a dairy farm in Sarsfield with Councillor Blais, to witness the impressive modernization of today's farming operation. Owned by the Van Moosteren family, this farm is one of 1,045 farms that you will find exploring rural corners of Ottawa, and it's the heart of our agricultural economy. I also visited the Carlton Mushroom Farms in Osgood with Councillor DeRuse, an impressive operation that brings many types of mushrooms to restaurants, not just in Ottawa, but throughout Eastern Ontario. And we have other types of farms too, like the Mississippi Mills Solar Farm in Councillor El Shantiri's ward, which plays a key role in producing clean, renewable energy that it supplies into the Ontario power. And that's why I'm proud, later this year, our economic development staff will be coming forward with a comprehensive rural economic. This document will guide our efforts to bring jobs to the rural villages of Ottawa throughout this term of council. And with our ever-growing population, we need jobs in every corner of our city. In the weeks preceding Canada Day, we will achieve an important milestone in the life of our city when Ottawa surpasses 1 million residents. Think about that for a minute, 1 million residents later this year. Although we'll confirm the date in the next few months, I'm excited by the prospects of planning for a city of over 1 million residents. This milestone, along with the launch of LRT, will help put us in another league among cities worldwide and will boost our image on the world map with visitors. And if we want to think even a bit further, in 2036, the population of the entire National Capital Region is expected to reach 1.8 million residents. That's about where Vancouver was when it hosted Expo 86 and Montreal for Expo 67, pointing to more opportunities to host large-scale events and excel globally in tourism. And I'm encouraged that we're laying the foundations for this growth with continued investment and confidence in our tourism industry. Tout comme l'enthousiasme dans notre secteur de
With the same enthusiasm that we have shown in tourism, we can do this.
1,000 new hotel rooms were added in the market, ranging from Le Germain at the Ottawa Art Gallery to a number of hotels at the airport and in Canada. In 2019, we expect another 300 hotel rooms to come online to meet the increasing demand. Having now reached the 5 million threshold in 2018, the Ottawa International Airport is planning for its continued growth and will be investing $25 million over the next few years to modernize its terminal and food concessions. It also announced earlier this week, just 2 days ago, that a $40 million alt hotel with 180 rooms will be built directly at the airport with an indoor connection to the terminal. In addition to this, the airport will also be building and funding an LRT station directly inside the terminal in Councillor Dean's ward. And due in part to these investments, the Conference Board of Canada recently projected that Ottawa's tourism sector would grow by about 2.4% in 2019, and then by then at least 2.3% each year between 2020 and 2022. Among the other things, the Conference Board report also pointed to the launch of LRT and its link to the Ottawa Airport as factors contributing to this strong upward trend. And it will not be the only economic benefit of LRT, our city's largest and most ambitious infrastructure project since building the Rideau Canal in 1832. Although I would have liked to have seen the launch of Confederation Line in 2018, I'm encouraged by the progress that transportation staff have recently reported. Nous continuons quand même à faire du bon progrès sur.
We're still making good progress on light rail.
7 fare gates have been installed. All 56 vending machines are ready to go. And over 1,000 CCTV cameras are now connected and already monitoring the system. The construction of LRT is creating thousands of good jobs and making people feel more confident to invest in our city. And I'm excited that we'll soon launch the first stage of this transformational project, and I'm proud that we're already planning for stage 2. The second phase of LRT will create 21,000 person years of economic employment and $4.5 billion in economic benefits to our city. It will also strengthen our reputation as one of the best cities to live and invest in North America. And with Stage 2 of LRT, we'll bring reliable and efficient train service farther east to Place d'Orleans and Trim, farther south to the airport and Riverside South, farther west to Algonquin College, Bayshore, Moody Drive, and the new DND complex. And I've always said the best friend of a car driver who's stuck in traffic is transit. The more people we can get on transit, the less congestion we have on our streets. Now, in December, just last month, Treasury Board approved the city's purchase of federal lands along the Stage 2 corridor, lands that are necessary to proceed with the construction project. I'm excited to report that at a meeting of the Committee of the Whole, that will be held on February 27th, we'll be presenting the procurement of Stage 2 for Council approval. That means we will see shovels in the ground later this year on the Trillium Line extension, helping us maintain the momentum we have started within the construction of the Confederation Line. And it won't stop there. We've already laid the groundwork to keep extending the system to Canada, Stittsville, and Barrhaven in Stage 3 of LRT. Nous devons continuer à prolonger le train léger pour.
We'll continue to extend our light rail system throughout the city.
EA was completed and approved by Council last spring, and so we're ready to develop that Western Corridor once funding becomes available. And earlier this week, Ontario Environment Minister Rod Phillips called me and signed off on the EA to go ahead, and I'm very pleased with this step forward. I'm also pleased to announce that later in 2019, the City will consult the residents on the future names of LRT stations that will be built as part of Stage 2. And at the request of Algonquin College, and President Cheryl Jensen is with us here today, we'll be proposing that Baseline Station be renamed Algonquin Station. This makes perfect sense, and given Algonquin's recognition as one of our city's respected post-secondary institution and its role as a major hub in the West End. Now, having a world-class public transit system is critical to continuing to attract major international business and talent to our city. Un système de train léger de classe mondiale nous aidera.
This will help us to attract new businesses and talents in Ottawa.
We need to ensure that these historic transit investments benefit all residents, especially those who need it most. That is why we introduced the EquiPass and EquiFare in 2017 to offer our low-income residents access to transit service at a deep discount of 50%. The EquiPass costs $58 monthly, approximately half the price of Toronto's low-income transit pass, which costs $116 each month. This pass saves pass holders approximately $700 every year. Cette mesure nous permet de bâtir la type.
This will allow us to build a type of city that we wish for, where transit is very affordable.
More than 11,000 residents had registered as eligible EquiPass users. And on average, more than 4,000 low-income residents benefited from their monthly subscription to the EquiPass, an increase of 25% over 2017 average. This is in addition to the 223,000 trips that were made in 2018 using the single-ride EquiFare. These numbers clearly point to the success of the initiative, but also to the need for this program in our community. Ce succès démontre le besoin de ce programme.
This demonstrates the need for this in the community.
Seniors who often find themselves on fixed incomes. I committed during the last election to extend the popular no-charge transit service to Sundays in addition to Wednesdays. I believe this is more than a simple cost-saving measure for seniors. It encourages them to get out and engage in social outings, help to fight the isolation that affects many in our community. Unfortunately, many seniors also find themselves on the city's affordable housing wait list. And this is an area where the city needs to do more to help its residents and families in need. Thankfully, between 2018 and 2022, approximately 750 new units will have been added to our affordable housing stock as a result of both public and private partnerships. But we can't stop there. Nous devons toujours en faire plus.
We have to do more.
Opportunities to help our low-income residents find a roof. And with the launch of LRT, we now have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to locate a number of affordable housing projects on public lands near transit stations. Capitalizing on this opportunity would really give a leg up to our low-income families who need both affordable housing and affordable transit to meet their families' needs. I strongly believe this would position Ottawa as an affordable and truly compassionate city. The city's transit-oriented development working group struck last year to identify these affordable housing development opportunities has been hard at work to produce a list of priority sites within walking distance of LRT stations. Under Steve Willis's leadership, the working group has identified 5 public sites primed for development in this term of council, and he will be presenting the list to the committee and council in the spring. In the meantime, I'm pleased to announce that the first site that will be prioritized by staff is 557 Albert Street in Councillor McKenney's ward, which is located between LRT's Pimissy Station and our future Central Library at LeBreton Flats. I look forward to seeing the detailed results of this work and how these affordable housing projects will help our community's residents in need. Now, beyond these investments in housing, we will also be investing significantly in our city's roads and infrastructures this term of council. As I made my way to more than 10,000 doors to hear from residents during the last election, and I'm certain many members of council heard it as well, the condition of our roads and infrastructure was a priority for an overwhelming number of residents. La condition de nos routes et de notre infrastructure.
The state of our infrastructure is a priority for many communities.
Target the Council supported in December will be able to invest an additional $9.8 million this year towards infrastructure renewal projects, including roads, sidewalks, paths, culverts, and bridges in all parts of the city. This means we'll invest $340 million more towards roads and infrastructure in 2019 and a total of $1.4 billion just in this term of council alone. At this rate, the existing infrastructure funding gap will be eliminated in 5 years instead of 10. À ce rythme d'investissement, nous pourrons éliminer.
With these investments, we can eliminate our infrastructure within 5 years.
Residents, and I believe they are prepared to pay a little bit more to have better roads and infrastructure in their community. And I also look forward to making investments to keep our communities safer. As you know, we can't achieve this without great work with our women and men in uniform, whether to fight drugs and gang violence on our streets or assist fearlessly during emergency events. First responders, as we all know, play a critical role in keeping our children and families safe. And somewhat unfortunately, we've seen their professionalism, dedication, and effectiveness over and over again over the last few years as our city was struck again. In September, Ottawa police, paramedics, and firefighters were called to the scene of devastating tornadoes that touched down in the communities of Dunrobin and Councillor El Shantiri's ward, and Nepean and Councillor Eglai's ward, and Ottawa South and Councillor Dean's ward in the Greenboro area. Earlier this month, they responded heroically and provided assistance, care, and comfort to those affected by the horrific Westboro bus collision, which took the lives of 3 residents, injured 23 others, and shocked our entire city. Through these incredibly stressful events, our first responders continue to show their poise and resolve and professionalism. With the support of many city staff, they consistently help our community get through difficult times. And I want to thank Bryce Conrad is here, I know. Hydro played a key role in getting people back up and running. And I know when I've seen Hydro workers, I've made a point, Bryce, of going and thanking them. They did remarkable work under very, very tough circumstances. So thank you to the men and women of Hydro Ottawa for a job very well done during the tornado. And also a big thank you, of course, to Steve Kanalakis, who chaired our Emergency Operations Center during the bus crash and during the tornado. That is why I'm so proud of the professionalism of the public servants that make up the City of Ottawa. And because the challenges are not getting any smaller, we'll continue to hire more police officers and paramedics through this term of council, which I'll address during the 2019 budget next week as it's tabled. Now, technology can play a crucial role in making our neighborhoods safer, and we have seen this with the success of the red light camera program. Cette technologie joue un rôle important pour améliorer la sécurité sur nos routes. In the last election, I committed to installing 20 new red light cameras, in addition to the current 54 cameras that already increase safety on all of our roads. Red light cameras, and I think you'll find this interesting, have led to a reduction of more than 50% in dangerous T-bone collisions, as well as a decrease of 43% in injuries. I'm also proud to say that the revenue from these cameras help us fund more road safety initiatives in neighborhoods across the city. This term of council will be piloting speed infraction cameras in school zones with the goal of eliminating dangerous driving and protecting our community's children. As a city, we've also invested in initiatives that help us protect our environment for future generations of Ottawa residents. Construction on the Ottawa River Action Plan's most important project, the combined sewer storage tunnel, has made significant progress. The north-south tunnel was completed this summer as a major milestone that we celebrated when the boring machine finally peaked out near the river behind the Supreme Court of Canada building on Wellington. The tunneling of the east-west corridor is expected to be completed this fall, and we look forward to the commissioning of the CSST in 2020. This important project will significantly reduce the amount of pollutants that make their way into the Ottawa River and help keep our drinking water clean and our beaches open for residents to enjoy. Ce projet important nous aidera à
And this project will help us to keep our water clean so that our residents may benefit.
In the city's green building policy in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and water consumption. We now have 27 LEED certified buildings, with 6 others currently undergoing certification. And just yesterday at the Innovation Centre, I was pleased to unveil that Invest Ottawa and the Innovation Centre have been awarded the gold certification in LEED. And going forward, all new buildings will have to achieve a LEED Gold standard starting at the design phase. We invested $1 million every year to implement energy retrofits, projects that are good for the environment and generate cost savings. We also approved a new policy for electric charging stations on city property and converted 36,500 streetlights to energy-efficient LED technology, thanks to our partnership with Hydro Ottawa. We all know Ottawa is a green city with plenty of parks and trees, but there's always room for improvement. La capitale nationale est une ville verte.
The capital national is a green city.
4 years, our tree planting initiatives were a success, and working with our partners at Tree Ottawa, we made significant progress to reverse some of the devastation caused by the emerald ash borer, which is why in the last campaign I committed to planting, the city, not myself personally, but the city planting 500,000 trees. I'll plant a few, but not 500,000. This will help us grow our precious urban forests and assist in our efforts against climate change. We will first dedicate a greater percentage of trees to the communities that were hardest hit by tornadoes this past summer, like Arlington Woods, Dunrobin, and Greenboro, so they may regain some of the thousands of trees that they were lost during the terrible storms. Secondly, I will ask staff to target city parks that could use some much-needed shade for families and children enjoying our public spaces. I'll also work with Councillor Moffat as Chair of the Environment and Climate Protection Committee to bring in some of the toughest tree protection bylaws and penalties in the country. We'll ask the province to give us permission to triple the current penalties, which could lead to minimum fines of $3,000 and maximum fines of $300,000. No longer will developers or enterprising residents have oops moments and a slap on the wrist after cutting significant trees during construction projects. This year, we will also make important progress on enhancing the voice of women at City Hall. On March 8th, in celebration of International Women's Day, I have the pleasure once again of welcoming over 300 of our city's leading women for a breakfast at City Hall. This year's breakfast will mark a first, as I will be joined by Council's new liaison for Women and Gender Equity, Councillor Kavanagh, and I will take this opportunity to launch the city's Women and Gender Equity Strategy. It will also be a first because, as part of the governance in December, Council committed to ensuring gender parity on its advisory committees and boards. I'm pleased to report, through this year's selection process, we're well on our way to achieving 50-50 parity on the advisory committees and boards that have already selected their members. And I look forward to working with Councillor Kavanagh and the many women who will find a voice at City Hall to ensure their perspectives can be heard by both members of council and staff. We
are also making constant progress in order to provide more French language services in all areas of the city. Last year, we were able to provide French language services in sports and recreation. This year, I'm very pleased to see that we will have student camps in Ottawa, Osgood, and Metcalfe, and to meet the needs of this Francophone community, which continues to grow in the west of the city, we will be opening La Maison de la Francophonie this fall. Thanks to the hard work of the French language public council, we will be able to provide more services in French. And at City Hall, the number of complaints has decreased from 47 in 2017 to 34 in 2018. So this is a decrease of 27%.
Accomplishments of distinguished individuals this year by presenting the key to the city to the following: author, lawyer, and political activist Maureen McTeer, Olympic gold medalist and decorated figure skater Patrick Chan, who was born in Ottawa, Sue Garvey, executive director of Cornerstone Housing for Women, former Premier Dalton McGuinty, Ontario's only Premier to represent Ottawa in the legislature, et le pionnier de la communauté franco-ontarienne d'Ottawa, Ronald Caza. I hope that you will join me in paying tribute to these most accomplished residents who have changed the face of our city. And indeed, our city is evolving and changing for the better. Notre ville est en plein changement.
Our city is going through change, and this is a very good benefit for us.
To tackle these many challenges and improve the lives of our residents. I know, as you do, Ottawa's future is bright. I look forward to working with all members of Council throughout the course of this term to continue this progress. Let's all work together for an even better Ottawa. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Councillor Dudas, please.
I would like to move a motion. Be it resolved that the Mayor's remarks given at the City Council meeting on January 30th, 2019 be appended to the minutes of today's Council meeting.
Carried. Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please. And I would ask members who would like to go out to Jean Piggott. There's coffee and tea there for our guests. So thank you very much for coming in such good numbers. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Ludloff.
Présent.
Councillor Dudas.
Ici.
Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Sudds.
Here.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Gower.
Ici.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Présent.
Conseiller Blais.
Here.
Councillor DeRose.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Meehan.
Here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
Here.
Le quorum est tient, Monsieur le Maire.
Merci. Adoption.
You have quorum.
Confirmation of minutes of the meeting of December 12th and the special meeting of December 13th. Carried. Declaration of interest, including those originally arising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. None. Communications as presented. No regrets. Councillor Fleury.
Can we, as part of Communication Bill 66, the municipal implication, there's an element on the Pawnbrokers Act impacts. Are we going to see a memo coming to CPS committee on the matter?
Who would that be? Mr. DeMonte, if you could.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Regrets, no regrets filed to date. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Conseiller Blais, appuyé par Conseiller Leeper, s'il vous plaît.
That the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Declaration of Vacant Office on Council, Ward 13, Rita Rockcliffe, and related matters. The report from the Selection Panel, Ottawa Board of Health, entitled Appointments, Ottawa Board of Health. The report from the Selection Panel, Ottawa Public Library Board, entitled Appointments to the Ottawa Public Library Board. The report from the Selection Panel, Transit Commission, entitled Appointments to the Transit Commission. And Planning Committee Report 1 be received and considered.
Carried. Just a reminder, it's a Bell Let's Talk Day, so I know no one tweets during council meetings, but if you happen to be tweeting, you should put in the hashtag Bell Let's Talk, because that money raises a lot of money. That initiative raises a lot of money for people who are dealing with mental health challenges, and we saw a great contribution from Bell, I think of over $300,000 to CHIO just last week, so it's hashtag Bell Let's Talk. Item number 1, City Clerk and Solicitor, Declaration of Vacant Office on Council, Ward 13, Rita Rockcliffe, and related matters. Déclaration d'une charge vacante au Conseil municipal quartier 13, Rita Rockcliffe et questions connexes. As colleagues know, we really have two choices. We can appoint someone or we can call a by-election. Clearly, with so much time left in the mandate, it would not be wise, in my opinion, to appoint someone. We should have a by-election. Even though there is obviously a cost to that, I think the best approach to ensure that the people of Rita Rockcliffe have a representative is if they vote for that individual. So I'd encourage people to support the recommendations as presented by the City Clerk. Carried. Next is appointments to the Board of Health, nomination au Conseil de Santé d'Ottawa, plus the pool of reserve members. On the Board of Health. Carried. Appointments to the Ottawa Public Library Board, nomination au Conseil d'administration de la Bibliothèque publique d'Ottawa. On the appointments. Carried. Appointments to the Transit Commission, nomination à la Commission de Transport Commune. Carried.
There's a couple of comments on this one.
Dissent by councillors.
Well, he wants to ask.
Well, actually,
do you have a question or are you dissenting?
Yeah, it's a question, and I think.
Okay, so Councillor Menard, you have the floor.
Yep, just hold that one, thanks.
No, go ahead.
On this one, I think it's worthwhile reevaluating some of one of the appointments here. It may not be the one you think I'm talking about, but I think there's a significant concern from several councillors about one particular appointment, that this one should go back and be reconsidered.
So who is it and what's the concern?
So the appointment is Mr. Olson, and the concern is some of his past, I guess, expression of interest and advocacy on behalf of, significant advocacy on behalf of pro-life groups, and that should be considered something that we look at again.
So, Mr. Clerk, is someone's beliefs, religious beliefs, an issue that we can deal with for the Transit Commission?
With respect, Mr. Mayor, no. These would be beliefs that I'm of the view that these would be covered by an individual's charter rights to have beliefs of freedom of association, freedom of religion, and freedom of expression, and they're not directly related, as I understand it, to an appointment as a candidate for a citizen representative on our Transit Commission.
Okay. So do you have a motion, Councillor Menard?
The intent was to defer the matter back to the nomination committee to have another look.
All of the names?
No, just the one.
Okay. Councillor Kavanaugh, did you have something on this motion? Do you have a seconder, Councillor Menard?
You want to send them all back? Well, I don't know why we'd want to do that. We need a seconder on the motion. So if somebody would like to second the motion, that would be helpful.
No one? Well, at this point, it doesn't mean there's a seconder for the motion, so. All right, Councillor Leeper. Is this something that should be dealt with in camera, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, I would suggest not, simply because now you are moving towards a deferral, so that's a procedural matter. Okay,
so the motion now before us is to refer this one gentleman's name back to the selection panel. To speak on this issue, Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yes, thank you. I just want to comment that as the liaison on women's issues and gender equity, I'm pleased that we have worked towards having gender equity, but I want to ask the hiring committee if they've also looked at looking at people to ensure that they have a gender lens, because one of the things we want to accomplish here is not just have, you know, men and women equally, but also have outlooks that look at issues regarding women and ask questions related to that. So I'd like that question to be asked to the hiring panel.
Yeah, at this point, though, we're talking about referring back to a committee, so we have to have that vote first.
Yeah, yes, but if they can answer that question, that would help. Thanks.
Yeah, but we have a motion by your colleague, Councillor Menard, that this matter be referred back to committee, so we have to talk on that item now. Does anyone else wish to talk on deferral before we have a vote? Okay, so on the vote to refer Mr. Olson's candidacy back to the selection committee, moved by Councillor Menard, seconded by Councillor Leeper. Yeas and nays.
Councillor Deroux.
No.
Councillor Blais.
No.
Councillor Harder.
No.
Councillor Hubley.
No.
Councillor Brockington.
No.
Councillor Tierney.
No.
Councillor Suds.
No.
Councillor Meehan.
No.
Councillor Luloff.
No.
Councillor Dudas.
No.
Councillor Eglai.
No.
Councillor El Shantiri.
No.
Councillor Leeper.
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Councillor Gower.
No.
Councillor Menard.
Yes.
Councillor Fleury.
Oui.
Councillor Deans.
Yes.
Councillor Cloutier.
Oui.
Councillor Chiarelli.
No.
Councillor McKenney.
Yes.
Councillor Moffat.
No.
Mayor Watson.
No.
7 yeas, 16 nays.
Okay, so on the report as presented, yeas and nays have been called. for all four. So it's, you know, it's for all four. You're voting yay or nay for all four. So, yeah, no, we have been called yays and nays. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Councillor Kavanaugh.
If this is the appropriate place, I do want to ask a question to the hiring panel regarding looking at candidates and asking them questions regarding the gender lens. My concern is that we not just pick equal number of men and women, but we also ask them questions on their outlook. And I want to know if those questions have been asked.
Well, I think we heard from the clerk that that would not be legal under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, you know, I think the fact that the majority of council have decided not to review the list, I think the committee, the selection committee, which Councillor Hubley, I assume, chaired as Chair of Transit, supports the four names going forward. So, Councillor Hubley, are you prepared to talk to this?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. I can tell you that the selection committee for the Transit Commission, I believe the others will agree, our number one focus was that they had some experience or something to contribute on the issue of transit. No, we did not breach anybody's charter rights by asking questions like that. It was not relevant to what the Commission will discuss. Mr. Mayor, I'm elected by my residents to represent all the residents. I don't go around asking, do you believe in this or do you believe in that? I represent them all. They all have a right to participate in municipal government. So to answer your question, the selection panel stuck to questions about transit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So, Councillor Deans.
To make sure I understood what Mr. O'Connor said, I may have misunderstood, but I thought I heard you say that asking questions with a gender lens somehow was a violation of our charter rights and freedoms. Is that what you said?
To be clear, Mr. Mayor, as I spoke of an individual's right to have their opinions, so they have a charter right to the freedom of expression, freedom of association, and a freedom of, in this case, as I understand it, religion. So pursuing those types of avenues or possibly being labeled with discriminating someone for holding a particular view or opinion may be problematic at the end of the day.
But how do we ask questions with the gender lens? Are you telling us we cannot put a gender lens because somehow we're violating people's charter rights?
No, Mr. Mayor, I didn't say that at all. What I would say in this instance is, as you heard from the chair of the hiring or the selection panel, that a gender lens was not used for this. It has not been used in any of our hiring panels for, as far as I can tell, 18 years that I've been doing this. And the fact of the matter is we are, as I understand it, with the liaison for the Women's Bureau, we'll be looking at those types of initiatives in the coming weeks, months, and years. So I'm not saying it can't be done. What I'm saying is it wasn't done in this case. I'm also saying, and I would think that this might be something that Council should know, is if you're going to consider it for one individual, you would consider it for not just one individual, but every individual volunteer that we have on our advisory committees, our agencies, boards, and commissions, because you would want to say you did it equally with everybody. So I would suggest that might be another challenge at this point.
Okay, and do you have an opinion on whether we can consider an individual's point of views on things like climate change?
I don't think, and certainly my lawyers will rush up and correct me if I'm wrong, that climate change would necessarily constitute a matter that is a protected interest under the Ontario or the Federal Human Rights Code.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, final question to you, and that is, could we separate the names for an individual vote on Mr. Olson?
Sorry?
Oh, I just asked if we could separate the names for just an individual note on the second individual.
Point of order, Councillor Harder.
Just don't understand when things change that we actually can have these discussions about individuals with a name in public. I've been here long enough to know that that's not the way it was ever done, nor do I believe it's appropriate, quite honestly. And I would have hoped that people that have these objections would have that with the city clerk and yourself in advance. It should not be in public dialogue. This is a person that lives in our city who's applied. I understand from people that were on the panel that he excelled incredibly, and I just don't know when things change, because it always used to be in camera. To have a discussion about a person.
Do you wish to call the question? Do you wish to call the question?
Well, I thought we were there anyways. I've already called yeas and nays 100 times. So.
Okay, so Councillor Harder is calling the question. Carried? Okay, yeas and nays. Calling the question means we get right to the vote. So yeas and nays on calling the question.
Thank you. Would the question be put?
Question be put now.
Councillor Deroux.
Yes.
Conseil Blais. Councillor Harder. Yes. Councillor Hubley.
Yes.
Councillor Brockington.
No.
Councillor Tierney.
Yes.
Councillor Sudds.
Yes.
Councillor Meehan.
Yes.
Councillor Luloff.
Yes.
Councillor Dudas.
Yes.
Councillor Eglai.
Yes.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Yes.
Councillor Leeper.
No.
Councillor Kavanagh.
No.
Councillor Gower.
Yes.
Councillor Menard.
No.
Conseil Fleury.
No.
Councillor Deans.
No.
Conseil Cloutier.
Oui.
Councillor Shirelli.
Yes.
Councillor McKenney.
No.
Councillor Moffat.
Yes.
Mayor Watson.
Yes.
16 yeas, 7 nays.
Okay, so the motion is going to be voted on.
Point of order.
Point of order.
I asked for it to be separated for the second candidate.
Okay, so on the first one, Anthony Caricato, carried. On this second one, Councillor Olson dissents by Menard, Brockington, Leeper, McKenney, Fleury, Kavanagh, and Deans. On Leah Williams, carried. On Sarah Wright Gilbert, carried. And item number 2, the unranked pool of reserve members, carried. Next item, committee reports. Report number 1, zoning bylaw, 180 Island Park Drive, modification au règlement de zonage 180 Promenade Island Park. We have a motion moved by Councillor Leeper, seconded by myself. Carried. On the motion? Carried. On the report as amended? Carried. Zoning, item number 6, 2983 and 3053 Navin Road, modification au règlement de zonage 2983 et 3053 Chemin Navin. Carried. Item number 7, motion, council resolution regarding section 45 of the Planning Act in respect to 168 Daly Avenue. Motion résolution du Conseil concernant l'article 45 de la loi sur l'aménagement du territoire à l'égard de 168 Avenue Daly. Carried. Bulk consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda?
Yes.
Councillor Fleury, which item?
The O-Train Network Development Zone of Influence.
Okay, your question. Go ahead.
So my only question is, there's only a slight reference to transit-oriented development, and I was unclear as part of this report. There's no issues with this report, but I wonder how, what is our interest as part of this report to protect city land for affordable units, inclusionary zoning, and encourage transit-oriented development. The report wasn't clear on that, on those 3 pieces.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll try to answer the question quickly, and Mr. Smith may assist me in this answer. So the intent of this report is to protect any lands from incompatible development that would impair the continuation of the Confederation Line, the Trillium Line, or other aspects of the Rapid Transit Network. We will be reporting separately to Council at a later date on our proposals for use of city-owned lands for affordable housing. That report is coming shortly, and so that's a separate matter dealt with in a separate report.
More specifically, we've done the transit-oriented development as part of Phase 1 stations. I believe that's completed, unless you might correct me on that.
Mr. Mayor, it's not entirely completed, and in the work plan that we're bringing forward to Planning Committee shortly, we'll indicate our prognosis on the remaining stations on both Stage 1 and Stage 2.
Okay, so you plan to complete Stage 2 this term?
Mr. Mayor, that is the plan, unless Planning Committee gives us any different direction.
Okay. And is there an opportunity, based on the TOD reviews, to mandate or require the inclusionary zoning piece?
Mr. Mayor, we're also in our Planning Committee work plan, which I'd encourage the councillor, I'll be pleased to brief him on that separately, and it's coming to Planning Committee, the entire work plan for this term, for this year, and what we expect some of the major initiatives. We are bringing a separate report on inclusionary zoning forward as well. That's part of the work program we're proposing to Planning Committee for 2019.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Willis.
Great. Councillor Meehan, please.
On the same topic, I know that we're looking at affordable housing in these areas around the transit. Are we also looking at other amenities when it comes to like grocery stores and things like that that will enable people who we are eventually going to be putting into those affordable housing to shop in their neighborhoods? Is that part of the plan?
Mr. Mayor, the council raises a very valid issue. It is something we deal with in the community design plans that happen around each transit station area. It's not part of this report, but I'm also happy to discuss with any councillor at any time how we're doing that in the specific community design plans in the neighborhoods of interest to them.
Okay, thank you.
Just a moment, please. Well, okay, thank you. Just for clarification, do you want to just raise that one point of clarification, Councillor Leeper, so members of the public are aware what the motion Councillor Leeper brought forward with respect to the Royal Taya?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you for supporting this motion. For the Thai Embassy at 180 Island Park Drive, Planning Committee did not, it rejected that application. No recommendation then rose to Council. The motion that was being brought to Council today was explicitly to reject the motion for reasons of being inconsistent with the provincial policy statement, the official plan. It doesn't meet the intent and purpose of the R1 zone. Employment use at this location is not sufficiently close to transit, and an employment use in this location does not conform to the official plan policies respecting employment. So that's what the motion said, and I appreciate your support for it. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Anything else in the bulk consent agenda? No? Okay, on the bulk consent agenda as presented, carried. Motion to adopt reports, motion portant adoption de rapport, Conseil Blais, s'il vous plaît, appuyé par Conseil Leeper. Councillor Blais.
That the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Declaration of Vacant Office on Council Ward 13, Rita Rockcliffe and Related Matters, the report from the Selection Panel, Ottawa Board of Health entitled Appointments, Ottawa Board of Health, the report from the Selection Panel, Ottawa Public Library Board entitled Appointments to the Ottawa Public Library Board, the report from the Selection Panel, Transit Commission entitled Appointments to the Transit Commission, and Planning Committee Report 11 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion? Carried. Adopté. Merci. Motions of which notice have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Councillor Harder. Councillor Cloutier, if you'd like to introduce your motion.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harder for working with me on this motion in December and presenting it, and for seconding. Cette motion traite pour le développement éventuel.
It deals about development of two properties, two big properties that belong to the federal government. The first one is 17 acres on Heron Road, the part of the area that will be developed quite a bit over the year. So we would like the federal government to have an open process, a consultation process before giving that property to the private sector.
acres, the old Ministry of Transportation of Ontario site has significant potential due to its size and location within a TOD zone adjacent to the Saint-Laurent Mall. And a small portion of this site was sold to a private developer in 2016 without consultation and without a master plan for the whole site. So it's important that the government, the federal government, provide information to the community about its vision for the site. Will it be an employment node, as had been suggested in the past, and what will the impact be for the community? And for this site, I'm simply asking that there be no further sales of parcels of land until we get that community consultation. And I would simply ask for your support for this motion.
Merci, Conseiller. Any questions or comments? On Councillor Cloutier's motion, seconded by Councillor Harder. Carried. Adopté. Merci. The next item that was we had previous notice of is a motion by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Eglai. Councillor Moffat, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I introduced this fully at the last council meeting of 2018 regarding the name of the Environment and Climate Protection Committee. Spoken to various members of council and some stakeholders that we deal with quite regularly through the committee's work, at least my experience in the past 8 years. So the motion itself is a bit tweaked a little bit with the name, just in discussion with the Vice Chair, Sean Menard. So therefore be it resolved that Environment and Climate Protection Committee be renamed the Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Water and Waste Management, and be it further resolved that a climate impact lens be considered for the template for all standing committee reports, and that this consideration be referred to the midterm governance review, and be it further resolved that a comprehensive review of all lenses be included in the midterm governance review so as to ensure efficient and meaningful reporting to committees and council.
Okay. On the motion, who would like to speak? I don't see the first one up there. Councillor Dean.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to be supporting Councillor Moffat's motion to rename the Environment and Climate Protection Committee to the Water, Waste and Environmental Protection Committee. We actually just named this committee last year, and you know, you ask yourself, what's in a name? Well, with all due respect to William Shakespeare, I would argue actually quite a bit is in a name. And in my opinion, this change signals to our residents that climate change and climate protection efforts are not a priority for this council. While that may not be the intent, it is the message. And frankly, I think we need to be doing more to highlight the work that we're doing around climate protection and green initiatives. We need to look to cities like Vancouver and Halifax, who have both recently declared climate emergencies and acknowledged the serious and urgent threat of climate change. This motion today is a symbolic step in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Councillor Fleury, please.
Thank you for this. And you know, I believe, similar to Councillor Dean's, that a name does have some significance. I do struggle with the idea that Environment Committee would be the only lens, as climate change has everything to do with housing, with some of our procurement purchases, some of our fleet purchases. It goes across various corporations in terms of, across the different departments across this corporation. And I think I like the second part of the motion, which is actually having a lens across various departments that would be accountable to the goals of council in relations to climate change initiatives. So I find myself at odds with the motion, because I think the name is important in terms of stating council's interest and values. At the same time, I think the lens is an interesting tool. And maybe I could follow up with a question to the clerk specifically relating to the lens. Right now, the motion speaks to only considering the matter at midterm governance, but I'd like to know if we would be able to implement that lens now instead of waiting, if we chose so.
Mr. Mayor, I think that that possibility is probably a bit premature at this point in time. I have had a previous discussion with the council liaison with regards to these matters, and we look forward to having those types of discussions as to what may or may not be feasible in that issue. So we are looking forward to it, and I actually suggested earlier today that we'd probably be talking before midterm about any possible changes.
But is there, so I recognize what you're saying in terms of risk, but is there something legally stopping us from saying today to amend the motion in front of us relating to the climate impact lens from being implemented in our reviews?
Nothing legally, Mr. Mayor. What I would suggest is there is a concern probably from staff's perspective as to what would that mean and how would you like us to implement that, as it might be too vague, and that's a problem for staff.
Can we have a mic for Councillor Moffat, please?
Through that, the fact that it refers to the midterm governance review in discussion with groups like Ecology Ottawa who have already been looking for something like this. They've actually been working with, I believe Steve Willis has had a discussion with Ecology Ottawa about a lens of this sort, but they haven't nailed down exactly what they want that lens to be, defining exactly what that would look at or how it would impact reports. As a result, it is premature. More discussion will take place on that with our various departments and Ecology Ottawa, and we can move forward and hopefully define that better in time for implementation of that exact lens.
So, Mr. Clerk, we have existing in our reports an environmental lens. Could the name change for the? Could we not change the environmental lens to reflect what would be passed in this motion relating to the climate impact lens, pending clarity work between the chair and the various community groups that might be interested in the matter?
Mr. Chair, you could do that. Again, nothing legally prevents you from doing that. However, whenever council produces a motion that is vague or ambiguous, I would suggest that you're going to end up with uneven and inconsistent results at the end of the day. Some people may be interpreting one way, some people may be interpreting another. That's why I suggested it was premature until there's a better understanding of what that type of language would mean and how you would want staff to implement it consistently across the board.
Yeah, I just feel that I recognize what you're saying. I just feel that the midterm is too far away. It feels like, nothing could be accomplished this term relating to those matters when we have the budget in front of us, we have the term of council priority that's coming, we have the transportation master plan, we have pretty significant plans that I would love to have a fair analysis on this climate impact lens. So I would propose that we would change the name of the environmental lens in our report to that matter and report back at next council as to what is the criteria of that, the review for that section.
Is that a motion?
Well, let me hear. There's a couple more speakers on the group. I would be in favor of the motion if we could see a community impact, a climate change impact lens come in sooner.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll just chime in from the clerk's position on this. By virtue of council's earlier passage of a resolution with regards to having a by-election, I really don't have a lot of extra room in my resources now, and I'll turn to my GM colleagues to see how they feel. But doing something in 2 weeks that would be meaningful with regards to, I think, what is an important subject for council's consideration is not something that my office would be able to support within a 2-week time frame.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may add, with your consent, just to respond to the councillor's question about what's feasible, if I can interpret that that's a question that's been asked. We have been talking to a number of community organizations about introducing a layer of climate lens in some of the major projects that are coming forward, not every council report that comes forward. So certainly in the official plan, it is definitely already part of the project. The infrastructure master plan, it will be part of the project. The transportation master plan, it has in the past been part of the project and will continue to be part of the project. We do see it completely feasible to introduce such a lens on these major initiatives without a council direction today. We could do it now. As it relates to the broader corporation and how it would relate to other sorts of reports, I think the thought of taking more time to think that one through, to the clerk's point, is of merit, and that would be staff's recommendation.
Councillor, do you want to wait till the speaker, or you're done? Thank you. Councillor Menard.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I am really happy that Councillor Moffat, spoke in advance about this, raised it early, and he also spoke with Ecology Ottawa, who I spoke with yesterday and the day before about the motion. I think Ecology Ottawa's position on this is, look, what's important here is what the committee does, and at the end of the day, I'm supportive of Clause 2 and 3 on this. And to the point that staff raised, that gives me comfort, particularly Mr. Willis, around what we can look at now in terms of a climate change lens. Climate change is the greatest threat facing the city. It's not terrorism or anything else like that. It's climate change. And in Ottawa, our city reports say that that's manifested through flooding. So in our city, the result of climate change, the risk to us is flooding. And so when you look at the IPCC report that's out, the 12 years that we have, I do believe this is an emergency and that this term of council is very important with this committee to get some things done. And I have faith in the chair, based on our discussions so far, that we're going to be doing that at that committee. So I'm going to support this motion. The chair was also took my suggestion around moving up the name of the environment. It's known as the Environment Committee. That's going to be first and foremost in this now. So I really appreciate that the chair did take that suggestion. I do think we need to look at a motion for an emergency on climate change in this city, just like many other cities are doing across the country, and I'm sure you'll see that coming forward in the next couple of months. I will be supporting that. But I am going to support this motion here today.
Thank you, Councillor Menard. Councillor Eagleye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I obviously am supporting this motion. I second this motion. The chair and I had good discussion beforehand. I was aware of his outreach with stakeholders within the community and the support that was there. I think it's also important to note that if you look at our last term of council, one of the most important pieces that this committee dealt with was the question around stormwater rates, which was not reflective in the previous title. One of the things that we're going to be doing in a very significant way this term as a committee is going to be waste management. Again, reflected very clearly in the new title, or the proposed title. Contrary to what Councillor Deans had to say, there's a very different way to look at this, I think. And if you Google climate impact, the first definition that comes out is the consequences of climate change, both expected and realized, for humans and for natural and human systems. So I think this, in fact, goes farther. What this says is we recognize climate change and we want to focus on the impact of that climate change. That's what this new name says. And that is further bolstered by the other amendments or the other changes suggested in the motion. So I think the chair's got it bang on. It cuts right to the chase. It says climate change is a real thing and we want to focus on those impacts and we want to move forward on them and make progress in this term of council. So without reservation, I will be supporting this change in name, because I think, as I say, it cuts to the chase. It gets to the essence of what the problem is. It gets to the essence of what this committee is supposed to be doing, and it makes it very clear to I think to members of public, again, what we consider climate change to be, and what we consider it to be by accepting this motion is it's a real thing. And we want to focus on the impact, and we want to fix it as much as we can within the resources we have as a city. So I'm, again, without question, will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Glide. Well said. Councillor McKenney.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion. I will ask that it be split up so that we can vote on each of the recommended changes here, including the impact lens to be considered for midterm governance. But I think that we go back to how we approach this as a city and what we signal in a change, whether it's a change of a name. And I think that I would submit that obviously names are important, or we wouldn't be back here for a second time looking at how we change the name to this committee. It does cut across several of our departments. Certainly transit carries a lot of the responsibility for reducing greenhouse gases, bringing LRT online, switching our fleet to a more sustainable source of energy. Certainly in the way we plan out our land use with planning and development. So I'd like to ask maybe Mr. Willis and Mr. Manconi if you believe that climate change is a serious and urgent threat to the city today.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, without a doubt, we are facing the consequences of climate change, and it is playing out in our urban forest. It's playing out, as Councillor Menard suggested, on the flood risk frequencies, and we are seeing it in terms of a broad range of natural and human systems. Our public health department group would report sort of increased effects from severe heat waves. So there's without a doubt, to the councillor's point, this is an issue for the City of Ottawa, and it does affect our operations.
But is it, do you believe, in your opinion as general manager for land use planning, that it is that climate change is a serious and urgent threat?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I don't know how I answer that question. It is a very serious issue that we must address. I don't know how I answer a question about threat or not, but it is without a doubt an issue that affects everything we do as an organization.
Okay. And Mr. Manconi?
Mr. Acting Mayor, I will not argue with the science that's out there on climate change, and I will point to our track record of a report that we authored in my public works days. We did one of the first climate change adaptation reports that retooled how we did winter operations. And what I believe in this regard is that the city is doing many, many initiatives, both operationally and capital investments on a bunch of climate change adaptations. Yes, the LRT does a lot of things for climate change, but even subsets of that, less salt use, less diesel buses and so forth, and investments in hybrid vehicles and alternate technologies.
Thank you. I appreciate those responses. So I agree with my colleague, Councillor Menard, that we have got to take more serious action. I think that at some point we will have to come back and declare this an emergency. It is the #1 threat that we're facing as a city. We've seen the manifestations of climate change, what it does to our residents, and what it does to the city. And so I will as well be looking forward to that and working on that. I have no doubt that the chair of the committee, and I look forward to working with the chair of the committee on the Environment Committee going forward. I have no doubt that he is serious, but at this time, until I see real change and real effort being put into how we mitigate the effects of climate change, reduction on our greenhouse gases, on how we use our energy, I will not support the change in the name. But I would like to ensure that the recommendations are split out so that we can vote on each individually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. I think it's unfortunate that the greatest debate we're having today is about the title of one of our committees. When you look at our agenda items that we have today, what do I like about some of our other standing committees, Planning Committee, Transportation Committee, Transit Committee? They're short. And they probably deal with other things within their mandate, but you don't have to list them all in their title name. This is being proposed to be called the Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Water, and Waste Management. That's quite a mouthful. And so I certainly acknowledge and recognize that perhaps the current name of the committee or the title doesn't enumerate every single issue within its scope or mandate. That's okay. That's okay. It doesn't need to be as lengthy and as wordy as it is now. I would have liked this to have come actually to committee and allow environmental partners and others to talk about it. Usually things come to council when it's urgent. This certainly isn't urgent. So I commend the mover and seconder. I do think that analyzing future motions through the city, through all departments with a climate lens, I certainly applaud that and will be supporting those. But I just think that the name of the new committee is unnecessarily long. It doesn't have to be that long. Environment and Climate Protection is a solid name, and I don't think there is a strong need to change it yet again the third time in 2 years. So I will not be supporting the name change, but I will be supporting the other two pieces of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Councillor Harder.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to say that I'm surprised we're having this discussion for the length of time we are, but I just thought I would say that we do have a governance process. It's one that's worked well for us. I know there's some other things that other people have talked about since we first became a council of this term, and wisely we've been advised, to go through the governance process. And I liked what Councillor Menard was saying. He's the vice chair of the committee, and he knows that that process is coming, and then that's the time to have a greater discussion. I'd also say that I think that we're getting a little bit carried away with some of the things. So I've got a report in front of me, and just to remind you, we have, no matter what the report is, we have rural implications, illegal implications, risk management implications, financial implications, accessibility impacts, term of council priorities, application process timeline status, and sometimes there's the odd other thing, okay? So personally, I would love to see something that's very important to our city as well, and it's about money, and it's about economic development. And I think economic development should be on every one of the reports that might have something to do with it. That's the key. If it's important, for example, 900 Albert, which we just passed recently. What's the economic development of something like that? I can tell you, it's $200 million. That's what the economic development was of that. And yet we didn't have that before us. I think it's important that we have other information. I think right now we have too much, and I don't think that the public cares about it. And we have to remember that it's the public that we serve. So with that new title, and we can go back to when it was the Planning and Environment Committee, and environment was part of planning. Then we had the Environment Committee. And the Environment Committee should be enough to encompass everything that's important in this city. Because I think when you start to try to split it into sections, it's not always important to other people. We could continue and say, I could ask everybody of my 60,000 people, what words do you need in this title to encompass what's important to you about environment in this city? I would bet you that the majority of the people in Barrhaven would say Environment Committee. I think that would be enough. But since we're going down a different road, I like what the chair of the Environment Committee is suggesting. We are going to do, for example, waste. Waste is a huge, huge factor in our city, and we're going to do a master waste plan in this term of council. I don't see anything wrong with the new title. I think that, likely it would have been better to capture it right at the beginning when we had that discussion. But definitely the conversation about whether or not every report has that, because honestly, I'm quite surprised, just like I said, economic development and all that matters to a city. But every meeting almost, Councillor McKenney, I'll ask you, you point out affordable housing and homelessness. And yet we're not putting this on every agenda, every report on every agenda. So let's have that fulsome discussion about what we should have on which of our committees and what we should be reporting on so that it matters to people. Councillor Moffat and I had a discussion earlier this week about the fact that maybe we don't need rural implications on every single application. Of course we don't. Think about applications down in Councillor Fleury's ward, Councillor Leaper's ward. Rural implications? Why is that on that report? It has absolutely no reverence and connection to it. And guess what? It's going to say there are no rural implications with this report. So let's have that fulsome discussion when we return to the governance discussion in 2 years. In the meantime, provide the clerk's office with your ideas, what you'd like to see covered, and we'll have that conversation. And I bet you we'll be talking about affordable housing and homelessness. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Harder. Councillor Moffat, you'd like to say a few words?
Just to wrap up, when the name was changed back in 2016, it was a walk-on motion as part of the midterm governance report to Finance and Economic Development Committee. It wasn't debated by any other committee. It actually wasn't debated at Finance and Economic Development Committee. It wasn't foretold. There was no motion that was circulated. There was no consultation done with other members of council or stakeholders. It was just a name change. Afterwards, the name change was touted as some sort of step forward in battling climate change. Reality is nothing changed. The committee virtually did nothing for the rest of the term. The name of the committee didn't impact its mandate. There was no change to the terms of reference to the committee. It was just symbolic. It was a political, presentation to say, well, we're actually doing something. If you want to do something, do something. If you want the committee work to actually mean something, then get to work and do something on the committee. But to change the name of the committee and think that's what you're changing, that you're actually impacting something, it's not what we're here for. We're not here to present optics that we're actually making change happen when we're not. So for those who want to make change, and I've spoken to them, they'll be a part of this committee and we can move forward on that. The reality is making one committee, the Committee for Climate Protection, is misleading because it's a matter that falls across the entire corporation. It's a term of council priority. It has been in the past. It will be in the future. It belongs to every report, to every committee. So I stand by what we have here today. I thank you to Councillor Eglai for support, Councillor Harder for discussing what we did beforehand, leading to the comprehensive review of all the lenses, and to Councillor Menard for his discussion too around the name and working with him as the Vice Chair of the committee for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moffat. And I want to comment on this one also, that I do support the motion because I know that in the last term, Councillor Eglai highlighted these two things. We dealt with the stormwater, we dealt with the waste management, and I think it's very appropriate name, and I'm really happy to support this, Councillor Moffat. On the motion.
He doesn't know the procedures. No.
Just go yeas and nays on one. Sure. And then just carry that.
Okay with that? Okay. So we're gonna go on a motion on a recommendation. We're gonna split them for two. So on the first part, therefore be resolved that Environment and Climate Protection Committee be renamed to Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Protection, Water and Waste Management. On the motion? Yeas and nays. Go ahead.
Councillor Deruth?
Yes.
Councillor Blais?
Yes.
Councillor Harder? Yes. Councillor Hubley?
Yes.
Councillor Brockington?
No.
Councillor Tierney?
Yes.
Councillor Suds?
Yes.
Councillor Meehan?
Yes.
Councillor Luloff?
Yes.
Councillor Dudas?
Yes.
Councillor Eglai?
Yes.
Councillor El Shantiri?
Yes.
Councillor Leaper?
Yes.
Councillor Kavanagh?
Yes.
Councillor Gower?
Yes.
Councillor Menard?
Yes.
Councillor Fleury?
Oui.
Councillor Deans?
No.
Councillor Cloutier?
Oui.
Councillor Shirelli?
Yes.
Councillor McKenney?
No.
Councillor Moffat?
Yes.
Mayor Watson?
Yes.
20 yeas, 3 nays.
Thank you. On the second portion now. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Derouz. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedures. Motion exigeant la suspension des règles de procédure. Councillor Harder has a motion seconded by Councillor McKenney. There's time sensitivity to the item on suspension. Carried. Councillor Harder, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing intends to develop an action plan to help increase the supply of housing in Ontario, and that will address the barriers, as it says in the first paragraph there. We were in a time crunch because this is our first meeting after in the new year, and so we missed the deadline by a little bit, but we asked for that grace so that we could have a council-supported memorandum coming from our general manager. That's why. So that's the opportunity today to do that.
Okay, Conseiller Fleury sur cette motion.
No. On this motion, Councillor Fleury.
Okay.
On Councillor Harder's motion.
Just could we have a brief summary of what the comments are going to be that we are endorsing?
Well, we actually
an
attachment of the whole presentation, the whole memorandum.
Is it going to be the attachment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so on the motion, carried. Any other motions requiring suspension of the rules? I believe Councillor Fleury, you'd like to suspend the rules signed by Councillor Brockington, time-sensitive issue with respect to the stew cook-off. On suspension, carried. Councillor Fleury, please.
Monsieur le maire, on a le bal de neige.
Winterlude is coming up, as you know, in the Boward Market, and the BIA wants to do something for the 28th annual stew cook-off. It will take place February 8th from 11 to 10. So we invite people to participate, and we would like to close the road at York, William, and Dalhousie from 6 p.m. February 8th up till Saturday, February 9th, 6 a.m. for the stew cook-off and the BIA. Any other questions? Councillor Brockington? What is the word in French? It sounds better in French.
No, but wouldn't mind the recipe. I just had a point of order when the time is right.
On this item? No, okay. So on the Fleury-Brockington motion, carried. Next, requiring suspension of the rules, Councillor Tierney, signed by Councillor Luloff, on an AGCO issue by the Glass. On suspension, carried. Councillor Tierney, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is more housekeeping, so people that have been around this table before have seen this. So I'll dispense with the whereases. Therefore, be resolved that until December 31st, 2022, City Council hereby continues to support the application of any manufacturer already duly licensed by the AGCO in the City of Ottawa seeking a manufacturer's limited liquor sales license by the Glass license from the AGCO.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Tierney, seconded by Councillor Luloff. Carried? Carried. Are there any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure? Do you have a point of order on an item on suspension?
Not on suspension.
No, okay. So notice the motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting. Does anyone have notice of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting? No. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Conseiller Blais, appuyé par Conseiller Leeper, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le maire, que les règlements énumérés à l'ordre du jour sur la rubrique motion de présentation de règlement 3 lectures soient lus et adoptés, et que le règlement suivant soit lu et adopté. Règlement de la Ville d'Ottawa exigeant la tenue d'une élection partielle pour pourvoir une poste de membre de conseil pour le quartier 13.
Requiring a by-election. to be held to fill the vacancy in the office of the member council for Ward 13, Rita Rockcliffe. Carried. Councillor Blair. That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of January 30th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm sure this is just a small point, but just for the public record, my impression is that a member of council's vote is only recorded if they are in their seat. And on the Environment Committee vote, the mayor was not in his seat, yet the clerks appeared to have recorded that vote. So is that an error, or is that allowed?
Well, I think the deputy mayor was in the chair. Is that Mr. O'Connor?
Mr. Mayor, the procedure bylaw provides that a member of council must be seated in a seat reserved for a member of council. So, Mr. Mayor, you were not seated in a seat reserved by a member of council, and I called your vote in error. So it would be 19-2.
Oh, that was close. Okay. Well, where am I just out of curiosity, where am I supposed to sit if I'm participating in the debate, Mr. O'Connor?
Well, that actually, Mr. Mayor, raises a very good practical question, because you would have had to have raced over to Councillor DeRuse's vacant chair and voted from there. So that's a problem.
Okay, thank you. Any written inquiries, Madam Deputy Clerk? Adjournment, Councillor Blais, please.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of January 30th, 2019 be adjourned.
Carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.